Yeah, there he is.
I love, oh my gosh, his face.
Hi, Jessie.
Hello, interwebs. I hope you're all doing well, and I am very honored to have a returning guest on the channel today. You all may know him as the wonderful Rin, the ill-fated Andorian in Star Trek Discovery Season 3, which still breaks my heart. But he is absolutely lovely, and I'm so glad to be able to have him come back today. Noah Averbach-Katz, how are you doing?
Happy to be. Am I your first returning guest?
Are you? I feel like you are, unless you count like people that have had on live streams and stuff. You're the first.
No, I'm back. I'm breaking new ground. I'm a returning guest, and I'm very, very happy to be back. Thank you for having me, Jessie.
Thank you for being back. I mean, honestly, I know you got other stuff going on, but the whole reason I want to have you here is we can just talk more Enterprise. I just need someone to start Trek Enterprise.
Absolutely.
Yes.
Absolutely. I feel like there needs to be like a whole campaign to recontextualize it.
Mm-hmm.
I feel like T'Pol needs a whole second life.
I mean, I want Jolene Blaylock to come back in some Star Trek.
She was at Star Trek Day. Everybody noticed.
I know.
She's getting tired of iHeartRadio.
Oh, poor Jolene. She is so underappreciated. I've been rewatching Enterprise. And just watching her, I'm like, she is so good, especially like when she started. She was just a very, very young actress, like very early in her career. And she like nails it almost right out of the gate.
I think she is truly the most Vulcan, even more than Tuvok. There, I said it.
No,
I am
on record. I think I even said it in a video. Jolene Blaylock is my favorite Vulcan, second only to the great Leonard Nimoy. Like, other than that, and that's no diss at Tim Russ or anyone else. Like,
no, we love them. We love all of our Vulcans equally. I just, I love her portrayal of the Vulcan species or race or whatever.
Exactly.
Anyway.
Anyways, I didn't actually mean to go off of that train, but that was wonderful. But the real reason that I have you coming in today is because you are doing something really cool. You are actually making a movie. And I wanted to talk to you
We're trying to, yes. You know, we are currently, the team is currently running a Kickstarter to raise the funds for a short film called Type 1, which we're very excited about.
Yeah, tell me a little bit about it, because I know the pitch of it, but I'd love to hear from your own words.
Type 1 is a short film about a type 1 diabetic and his wife, who in the wake of some sort of societal disaster, sort of go on a search for a cachet of insulin before time runs out. That's my elevator pitch, which you can see I've been really practicing.
You're honing it down. Like, it's like once you get a Kickstarter going, it's like you need to give it like the elevator pitch.
Yeah, I had like a really long drawn out thing, and my producers started yelling at me. They're like, one sentence or we're kicking your ass. So I've been really working on it. I'm very proud of that. But yeah, that's sort of the pitch of the short film.
Yeah. And I think, watching your little pitch video on Kickstarter, you spoke about like part of the reason that you were doing this is because you also have diabetes as well. And this is something that you've been dealing with. Yeah,
I've been a type 1 diabetic for almost 20 years. And it's, it's like the sort of genesis of this movie is sort of a confluence of a lot of different factors. It sort of was born out of like pre-pandemic times. I was doing a play in Baltimore, and I was working with this very talented deaf actor named Trishelle Edmonds, who is amazing. And she was sort of kind enough to open the door a little bit into the deaf community and let me sort of poke my head inside and see what it's all about and the complexities of that community and the depth of it. And I just found it really moving. And it also sort of made me reflect on the diabetes community, the type 1 diabetes community, and how limited in scope it is. There's a lot of reasons for that. Type 1 diabetes is quote unquote an invisible illness, meaning that you're not necessarily going to know right off the bat if somebody has it if you interact with them for a short moment. So it can be hard to find other people, and generally people are very spread out. There's no sort of central type 1 diabetes hub like at university for deaf folks. So it sort of just got me thinking. The other thing is that there's also no, in absence of a physical hub, there is like a robust online space, but there aren't like pieces of media that really bind us together that we can all sort of come around or meet each other sort of around. And a lot of that is because when diabetes or type 1 diabetes is portrayed in the media, it's usually just not done by a type 1 diabetic, for starters. And it's also usually done as a plot point. So, there are like varying degrees of how well it is showcased, from, some of the worst stuff in like something like Con Air to some of the best stuff in a movie like Greenland, where they're really thinking about it. But, no shade to anybody, but, those aren't really for a diabetic audience. They're really for an abled audience to use it as a plot point, so the abled hero can kind of save the day, right?
Yeah.
Gerard Butler is saving his kid, or Nicolas Cage is saving his convict friend. And so I was sort of just like thinking about all this, and I was working on this play, and in this play I was playing a dog, and I had a long time where I just sat on stage like a dog in a house, and I was, daydreaming. I thought, I kind of came up with the genesis of this idea, and I thought that's a pretty good idea for a script. And it also is something that, and hopefully the movie will reflect this, that it's really, feels like it's made for and by somebody with type 1 diabetes. And I think the way that practically works is there's not like the explanation like you might have if you imagine, like,
let's sit down and talk. Yeah,
exactly. Like, what do you need insulin for? Well, there's not really explanation. And so it's trying to mirror that experience of being like, oh, for somebody who doesn't have it, maybe knows a little bit about it, or maybe knows nothing about it, feels like you're almost looking into something, right? You're getting a little peek behind the curtain. And for those who do have it or have like a really close familiarity with it, it will feel very familiar in a way that doesn't need to be explained. And so, that's sort of my hope and genesis process for that idea. And hopefully it will be okay and not bad.
I am almost certain it's going to be excellent. But it's just interesting, like, hearing you talk about that, because it's, I spend so much of my time on my own stuff, like talking about LGBTQ issues, and a lot of the same things that you're mentioning are the same exact things that I always sort of talk about in representations of LGBTQ people, about how often it's made to like present to teach people about LGBTQ people, like, what's it like to be trans, or
right.
It's usually made by non-trans people trying to display that.
Sure.
And it's just interesting because it just speaks to me about how often a lot of these types of films that you're trying to make with this are trying to showcase the authenticity of something to a world that doesn't actually like make itself available to people that don't have to think about it every day. And I think that's really...
Yeah, I think, in general, it's usually like the other people co-opting something for their narrative, which I think in a lot of different communities feels very common. But that's also why when you have, an LGBTQ plus film for and by, that's why they resonate so deeply with the community. Yeah. And that's why like other films that really have that meaning behind it really find a home in the community, and why communities spring up around them as well.
Exactly. No, it's fascinating. And one of the things that struck me, because I feel like this is a common also way to explore these ideas, is that you set this in a post-apocalypse, which I think even speaks even further to like it sort of heightens this sort of idea that our society today is not built for people, or doesn't like accommodate itself as well for people with diabetes.
Yeah, a lot of it was, I had this idea in February 2020, and then in April 2020, I was in New York in an apartment, not going outside. And I was like, well, I have to write this thing. And I think that the pandemic, for a lot of disabled people, really solidified what they already knew to be true and revealed it for the abled community, which was how expendable the abled community views disabled people,
Mm-hmm.
and how you really have to fight for your space to stay alive, basically, for a lot of people in the diabetes community and in the disability community. And I think, like, part of setting it in a kind of post-apocalypse or post-disaster is to give it that sort of sci-fi or disaster element that sort of separates, a bit of reality, so you can sort of interpose a little bit of meaning onto it, because it can be so much to realize that actually, like, people are searching or desperate or making really, really horrid decisions for the insulin that they need to stay alive in a day-to-day world right now. And sometimes you need to be removed from that a little bit so you can actually ingest it. And then, my hope is at the end of the movie, you have a moment of realization and say, like, oh, well, this is what people have to do all the time.
Mm-hmm.
This is what I've been very, very privileged and fortunate to never have to ration insulin. But, I'm constantly trying to field requests for people who need insulin, who simply can't afford it because of pharmaceutical greed and policy inaction.
Mm-hmm.
And it's not like that in other countries. And for, other countries who don't have the infrastructure the United States has, it's even tougher to find the insulin you need to stay alive. So, it is abstracted so you can digest it, but it's so close to reality that hopefully it resonates on that level as well.
Well, because we're both Trekkies, that's what, like, good sci-fi does, right? Like,
That's the idea.
Takes something and, like, just takes it into a different context, so then you can actually see the truth of it, as opposed to, like, getting mired in all the specifics of today, but, like, really this core kernel of the idea.
Yeah, and I think there's something about the insulin pricing crisis, which is actually extremely not bipartisan. There's really people on both sides who are encouraging it, who don't really have all the facts straight, who are not helping. And my hope is at the end of the movie, you realize that this life-saving medication shouldn't cost thousands of dollars a month for people who can't afford it.
Yeah, it's all about greed, as you said before. Like, it's just trying to make more money off of the back of the people who need it. And part of why capitalism distances us from being empathetic and caring. Yeah. So
yes, indeed.
Sorry, that's me. That's me.
No, it's a good editorialize. I'm here for it.
Yeah. Well, I also wanted to kind of talk a little bit about, like, the production of this, because you're starring in it. You wrote it, and then also your wife Mary, who many viewers may know as Tilly from Star Trek Discovery, are going to be in it. So, on that side of things, on the sort of creative end of things, what was your thinking of how you wanted to be the creator of it, the star of it, and working with your wife?
Well, I definitely wanted to be in it less as like an acting showcase and more of finally having a chance for a type 1 diabetic to actually play a type 1 diabetic. So there isn't that disconnect between the actor dealing with the actual physical stuff and what's being portrayed on screen. And for the writing as well, there is no disconnect between the experience and what you see on screen. And, Mary's the best actor I know, so I obviously wanted to put her in the film, which I was absolutely terrified to do. And I was sending early drafts of the script to my manager. And I was like, I think maybe I should make them brother and sister and not husband and wife. And he was like, are you a fucking idiot? Mary's playing that. Don't send me another script unless, it's Mary's name is in it. So he set me straight, which was very good. And then, of course, Anthony Rapp is directing it as well, which is so exciting. He has done some, he's sort of mentored under Jonathan Frakes on Discovery and shot some of his own scenes for season 4, I think.
Oh, I didn't know that.
Mary might have done. Hopefully I'm allowed to say that, but whatever. It's just really, really exciting to get to work with Anthony on it. He's like a total film dork. He like went to film school, which I didn't even know.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know anything about film, and I'm sort of a pleb when it comes to filmmaking. So like
Oh,
I'm so
see.
excited to have him on board.
See, as a film school person myself, I know
Yeah.
they literally like give you a list of like, here's all the things you need to know, and then you become sort of the film bro. Anyway.
Yeah, I don't know anything. Yeah. So I'm very excited for him. He's, he'll talk about a lens, and I'm like, well, that's your job, not mine. And it's also just really fun and gratifying to feel like the friendships and connections and sort of like artistic connections that you make while making a television show like Discovery, which people get, they work together so closely. And then there's so much time, in the off season when you're going to conventions together or just, doing all sorts of stuff together, that those really have fostered something kind of awesome and have that we get to keep working with those. It's a really, really good and fulfilling feeling.
Yeah, I would expect like it's, again, I know we spoke about this when you first came on here, but it's just nice to know that the community that seems to be built up around just Star Trek in general is continued behind the scenes and then goes off into other areas. Like,
I can't speak for what things are like on Prodigy, but for Discovery, the whole Discovery cast has really showed up. We sort of send an email to everybody, just kind of, hey, we're doing this, and they were just like, oh, we're on it, we're donating, we're sharing, and it was just a really really exciting moment.
Yeah, I would expect. So tell me a little bit about the process of like getting this Kickstarter going and like getting things made. Like, what's it been like? I mean, you've last I checked, you've like smashed several of your goals.
Smashed some goals. Yeah, it's been amazing. We worked really hard on the Kickstarter, tried to make a really professional video, have a really clear pitch of what we're trying to do, really try to make clear exactly what type of film we're going to make. So that way people know what they're backing and also have an expectation of the final product as well. So we just worked really, really hard on setting that all up. We have like a bunch of it's basically like all the stretch goals are sort of my 3 areas of interest, which are Star Trek, type 1 diabetes, and Dungeons and Dragons. So like everything is there. Like I feel like if somebody who like really likes film like came in, they'd be like, what is going on with these stretch goals? Like, why is there a type 1 diabetes? Yeah, it's like there's a type 1 diabetes delta enamel pin. It's like, what does this have to do with anything? Like a Star Trek fan film? Like, I don't understand. So we worked really hard on making those rewards special and exciting, and I think they really are. I'm going to be running like 10 people's personal D&D sessions for them. So I basically gave myself like a full-time job. And then to see the community really show up the way that it did has just been so amazing. We set our initial goal at 25,000 and broke that in 8 hours, and then we doubled that in like 24 hours, and then we set up a stretch goal and we beat that in 10 minutes, and then we set up another stretch goal and we beat that in a day. And I was sort of at the end of it, I was like, I'm out of ideas. I have to go back to the drawing board. So we have a stretch. It's currently Thursday the 10th. We've got about 13 days left in the Kickstarter, and we have one final stretch goal going, which is if we get to 85,000, I'll do like a video commentary of my episodes of Discovery and talk about behind the scenes and all the stuff that was happening that got cut.
Which I'm gonna use this moment to pitch to everyone watching this. Go to the Kickstarter. The link should be down below if it's not already there, and go and support this film because it's going to be amazing, so wonderful. And also, I just want to see those commentaries. So for me,
I'll reveal all of David Ajala's dirty secrets. It's definitely worth checking out. And I think we actually have some really cool rewards that are worth getting in on. And I also think one of the best things about the Kickstarter that I've seen is that a lot of the people who have put real like significant financial contributions behind this have been people who I've never interacted with before, but who had a connection to both Star Trek. So maybe I came across their Star Trek feed at some point, but also had a connection to diabetes, whether they were type 2 diabetic, type 1 diabetic, whether they knew somebody. And so it was really gratifying for people to find this project and have that feeling like, finally, this is something that I've been waiting to see. And I need this to happen because it's important to me to happen. And, how many people have reached out and said like, oh, this idea of what do I do in a disaster? How do I stay alive in a disaster if I need insulin, right? Which is, we have so many examples of how that could happen to us right now. So many people said, this is something I think about all the time. This is a conversation I had with my wife the other day. And to really have people respond to that in that community, which is actually the community that sort of is the most difficult to enter, is really gratifying, because it feels like I am really landing on something that is worth making, which is a good feeling.
Yeah. I mean, it's always got to be wonderful. I mean, I get similar stuff through my YouTube channel, where you just get people saying like, oh, this really means something to me to see someone like in Star Trek being a dork talking about trans issues. And it's nice to have that feeling of like, oh, I'm making something that speaks to me, but is also worthwhile to others. So I can imagine that's got to be really gratifying and like really wonderful. And also I'm sure like kind of exciting to get to make the film, to actually do that.
Definitely. And no pressure at all. If I screw it up, nobody will be angry at me.
I didn't want to say it because I know that feeling too, but I think you're gonna do excellently with it.
Well, my real thought of that is like, there's a possibility this movie could suck. It happens. Movies suck all the time. But my real hope is that, I'm sort of building off the work of other disabled filmmakers, people who've done amazing stuff. And I hope that I can just be another stepping stone along the way, especially into the world of diabetes filmmaking, so that somebody else might see this project, watch the movie and say, I could do this better. And they make their own film and they know where to turn to get some help. Yeah. So, if that's the worst thing that comes out of this, then I would be pretty satisfied with that.
Yeah. Well, I feel like, especially with films like this, it's never about, like failure or anything. Like we tend to put things in, but it's like, this sucked, this is good. I think it's all about creating conversation. And if your film is creating conversation, if it's like getting people to be inspired and think about stuff that just seems like it's already doing, then I think it's well worth the effort. So I don't think you have anything to worry about that already on that front. So that's wonderful.
Thank goodness. Lovely. Yeah. Good.
And I'll use this opportunity one more time to pitch for you. Go to the Kickstarter, folks. One of the stretch goals, or one of the things that you can get, I should say, is a Zoom call with Noah. I believe there's still some of those available.
You can get a Zoom call, and then I made a whole package to get all sorts of crap for the Zoom call, so we can hang out.
I just mention it because, as someone who is currently on a Zoom call with you, it is. I can say it's well worth the money. So.
That's right. Yes. We had a whole conversation before the interview even started. So you got your money's worth as well, right?
Yes, I did. I just meant your wonderful personality, but yes, of course, it is absolutely wonderful with you. Well, is there anything else that you wanted to touch upon? Because I kind of hit all the notes that I wanted to ask you about and really think about.
No, if you're out there and you're watching and you're curious about the film, DM me on Twitter or send a message on the Kickstarter. If you're a type 1 diabetic, or someone who's type 1 diabetic and you're insulin insecure, hit me up and we'll see what we can do for you. I can send you to some organizations or send you anything that I might happen to have. And if you want to kind of get involved in, if you're sort of on the fence about getting involved, throw $1 to the Kickstarter just so you can follow along with how the film turns out and join the sort of type 1 diabetes community that has sort of surrounded this film. So I just suggest that I think it's going to be a really, really worthwhile thing to be a part of.
Yeah, well, it sounds like it, and I'm really excited for you. You're going to do wonderful work. I'm excited to watch it. So, yay. Is there any other last things that you want to pitch, or just say like follow me or anything like that?
Smash that subscribe button on freaking Jessie's channel. Let's go. Come on.
Do it. Well, thank you. I appreciate it. Noah, it has been absolutely wonderful talking to you, and to everyone else out there. I know I've said it a few times, and I know Noah said it a few times, but please go check out the Kickstarter and send some support his way, and to everyone making this film. It's going to be well worth it. But beyond that, thank you so much for being here. Thank you, Noah, so much for being here.
Thank you for having me.
Yeah. And live long and prosper, everyone.
Bye.